Hi, my name is Amar and I am 16 years old. I am proudly a part of this year's Do It Your Damn Self crew as a teen curator.
My name is Xavier Montes. I'm 17 years old, and this is my first year as a member of the DIYDS crew.
My name is Heinz. I'm 17 years old, and I'm proudly a part of this year's Do It Your Damn Self crew as a teen curator. This is my first year in the crew, and this is my second year with the CAC, also known as the Community Arts Center.
I will be your facilitator for this live event. As a teen creator for this film festival, I realized DIYDS gives teens all across the United States and the world a chance to have their voice heard. It inspires me to want to hear more about what young people are going to showcase each year. It also excites me to see what creative ways the films are going to address these social justice issues. I love seeing the world through other people's eyes and perspectives. I learned while being in DIYDS, I have a strong passion for social justice issues.
We accept films through our website, and from all the submitted films, we see if they fit our guidelines, such as social justice issues, youth perspectives, and the experimental film. After we are finished narrowing down the submissions, we go on a retreat to review and rewatch the top films we chose to make sure they really fit the criteria. We are honored to be able to host this event and use it as an opportunity to spread youth artists' ideas on social justice topics to our community.
As teens, we often feel underestimated or looked down upon. People think that we don't care about social issues, that we only care about social media, drugs, and clothes. Not only does this film festival show everyone that teens aren't any less capable than adults are, but also that we have a strong understanding of social issues as well as filmmaking. DIYDS was started for this exact reason, to break the stereotypes and make our voices heard. In 1996, 6 teenage girls from Cambridge noticed that they didn't like how they were being represented in the media. Those 6 girls wanted to change it and decided to do it their damn self. They created a space for their voices and other youth who wanted to be heard. And we thank them for allowing us to carry on their legacy.
The Do It Your Damn Self National Youth Film Festival is the longest running youth-produced festival in the country. The festival is a champion of social justice and issue-focused filmmakers who want to change youth representation in the media and make their voices heard. DIYDS is hosted by the Cambridge Community Arts Center Teen Media Program.
All right. I'm sorry. I started. All right. Welcome everybody to the 23rd annual Do It Your Damn Self Film Festival. I had notes, but I don't know what happened to them. But I don't know, Mara, you think do you got this? This is a real thing. Yeah, I know.
Okay, I'll start then. My name is Mara.
I'm so sorry.
I'm 16 years old, and I will be your facilitator for this live Q&A. This is my 3rd year with the festival, and I was part of DIYDS Junior prior to this.
My name is Xavier Montes. I'll be facilitating the Q&A as well. Sorry. Not the order, bro.
Okay, I'll go. It's okay. Welcome to our 23rd annual Do Your Damn Self National Youth Festival. We would like to take a moment of silence for those lives who have passed over the past several weeks. So we're now going to take a moment of silence. Okay. Now we are going to start our live Q&A where we ask multiple questions to various of the filmmakers.
I guess we'll be introducing our first filmmakers onto the stream. Wait a minute. Okay. There we go. Welcome to the Q&A. Why don't you introduce yourself and explain who you are and where you're from?
Hi, I'm Bella Rothenflew. I'm from Austin, Texas.
My name is Mariana Talamash. I'm also from Austin, Texas.
Okay, and can you say what your film is about and what was your job?
So our film is it's an experimental horror film about eating disorders and the psychological effects with it. And I was the director and writer.
And then I was the DP.
Okay, so our first question that we have is by Jenny, and it's what inspired this film?
For me, it just inspired my personal experience with like disordered eating, especially with I made this film my junior year of high school. It was about my sophomore year when I went from like weighing 140 pounds to like 110 in only like 3 weeks. And then I made it with my best friend Bella.
Bella, do you have anything to add?
I feel like for me, it wasn't my personal story, but I wanted to be able to tell Mariana's story visually as well as I could. And so it was just me trying to like understand what she had gone through and how that affected her, and then like visually represent the like horror of that like mental illness for her.
Gotcha. Our next question comes from Amara. She asks, what is something you would like people to know about eating disorders?
I think something that just like to know is that it is like a mental illness. Like it is a mental illness. It's hard for it to leave. You just have to kind of push through and just remind yourself to take care of yourself.
Anything you want to add, Bella?
I think I've seen several of my friends go through eating disorders, and so I think as an outsider, it's important to like know the warning signs and understand how to support people, and not be afraid to ask like if they need help, or like even sometimes tell people that they need help, and just be there and support people in the ways that you can is really important.
So the next question is by Erin. She asks, how did you choose the music for your film?
We actually had like a super long conversation, but like I'm not gonna lie, the first time I made it, Bella was like, this is a weird way of filmmaking, because I was like picking all the details out first. But when it came to the music, I was like, I want the film's aesthetic visuals to be very cutesy and very like sugary and popsy. And we're like, oh, we could use like a 50s song, like a 50s S song. And that's how it chose it. It's just something that's super sweet.
I wasn't actually part of choosing the music. And so whenever I heard it for the first time, I was like, oh, that's messed up. Like I shot the entire thing and knew what everything looked like, and then hearing that music to it like made it even like creepier. Just that like kind of disgusting, I don't know, like sexualizing young girls thing. I don't know. It was weird.
Our next question from Patricia says, I'm curious to hear more about the visual and audio choices the filmmakers made to represent this contrast.
So Mariana and I spent a long time talking about visuals. This was the first film we'd ever made together. And so it was like a learning experience for both of us, to understand what each other meant. And so the communication was really important. And Mariana talked a lot about Carrie whenever we were talking about visuals. And I stylistically do a lot of like, I like bright colors and I like color lighting. And so she knew that I liked that type of filmmaking and I liked that like style. So she picked me to be able to represent her visuals. So I was just there to, I mean, we made a Pinterest board. We talked about color. We talked about color theory and what colors represent. And so we chose everything very intentionally, to represent how she felt during that process in her life. If I'm allowed to say that for you, Mariana.
I mean, yeah.
So the next question is, how did you both get into filmmaking?
Mariana, you want to go first?
So mine was actually an accident. Our teen program has multiple programs. There's a visual arts, there's a film, there's a theater one. And my friend Alon, who was in the program, said you should apply for film, but I know you're more of a theater person. So I went, okay. And then I ended up liking the film one more. And I joined and I was really shy because I was like, oh, I've never made a film. I don't know the first thing. I write scripts for fun. I don't know what I'm doing. And we did our film pitches and I was super nervous. And then they picked mine. And I immediately was like, I already knew Bella from my school and I knew she was a phenomenal artist. So I was like, please be on the project. That's how I got into it. I got into it because a friend was like, you should do it.
And my dad is in the industry, and so I've been around film my entire life. And I was like a technical theater major at my school, but still wanted an outlet for film. So I joined Creative Action, which is the like organization that Mariana and I are both part of. And so this was like the first like film that I had helped sit down and like produce essentially and shoot like not on my own, but like shoot myself. Because I've been on set since I was young, but this was like a really cool experience to like create something of my own and create something like as like just me and my friends and not just be on set as like a behind the scenes photographer whenever I was 12. Like it was a much more intensive process for me that was really cool, to get to be a part of.
I know my experience while I was watching this film, I could relate to it a lot because I was like, in society now, like they want women to look a particular way, or women think they have to look a particular way or have a certain body shape to be able to fit in and do what they want and to accomplish their goal. Like if you, for example, wanted to be a ballerina, like they look for specific body types and how you really look and stuff. And so I feel like I really related to it because when you're in a society that basically shapes who you are instead of you yourself shaping who you want to be, it's really difficult to like sit here and have all the confidence and really want to be who you want to be, even when you have all this pressure of people wanting to be something that you're not. So that was just like my whole experience of watching this film. I don't know about Xavier. Xavier, how about you?
I didn't have like a very personal reaction to it because I never really experienced anything like that for myself or knew anyone who went through that, but while watching it for the first film, it was still very powerful, and your use of juxtaposition really drove the point home. How like all these kind of these ideas of what the ideal form is, how that can be very toxic, and I thought like the very horror-y aspects really not resonated with me, but I found like really interesting, and it took a bit of convincing for the other people who were rating the films, but eventually we all came to the conclusion. So, no, that was me.
I think it was Xavier who pointed out, like, when I watched it, I was like thinking of like the first thing that came in my head, obviously, was like women and stuff. But like I think it was Xavier, like he pointed out like men like get fitted to like you're supposed to have abs, you're supposed to have muscles, you're supposed to be strong. Like if you cry and stuff, like you're weak. Like I didn't really think of it at first because you don't typically think of like a man being judged in society as much as a woman being judged in society. But like when he pointed it out, I was like, oh yeah, like that's true. Like men do get judged and they do get called names when they do certain actions that men are not supposed to typically do. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have anything else you guys want to add or ask us any questions or something.
I think I'm good.
No.
Yeah, I'm good as well.
Okay.
Well, I guess if that's it, no one has any closing remarks, something that you want the audience to take away from your film.
I think it's just to be aware of like the signs, because disordered eating gets implemented into like especially young girls so early. And also I think talk about it more, because it can be like a genetic thing. Like if someone in your family has had one before, you are prone to then getting one later in the future if you were close to that family member. So just talk about it more.
All right. Well, that's them for Bella and Mariana. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Mariana.
Okay. Mariana. Sorry. Everyone, give a nice, quiet round of applause from home. And I guess we'll move on to our next filmmakers. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
All right, here we go. Welcome to the Q&A. Thanks for being here. Please introduce yourself to the audience and tell us like who you are and where you're from.
Okay, so my name is Angel, and I'm also from Austin, Texas, like the other two filmmakers.
And what is your film about and what was your job?
My film is about bisexuality and being Mexican, and how that is like living in your home situation where the people who are around you don't really agree with who you are. And my role was I co-wrote with my writer, AJ.
Gotcha.
So the first question. Oh,
sorry.
The first question is from someone named Angelica. How did you and your team decide on the lighting choices? Because she thought one thing she noticed was after finishing this film, it was strong and usage of color.
Mm-hmm. So I had the idea of like red and blue lighting from when I had just started writing the film, because I don't know if anyone has ever seen Spy Kids and the third Spy Kids, but to watch that movie, you have to put on these like 3D glasses that are like blue and red. And that movie is made by Robert Rodriguez, who is a filmmaker from Austin, Texas, who is Mexican. And that film means a lot to me. So I was like, why don't I make the lighting like something that I've loved so much from my childhood? And it kind of has like a double meaning because with the 3D glasses, you have to put on a layer, and there's so many layers to this character. It's just a double meaning and from something from my childhood.
Next question from Anonymous, apparently. What went into the process of choosing the identity of the three main characters?
We had it was me and my friend Alon and my friend Zion, and we were just like in a room together, and AJ as well. We were just in a room together, kind of like thinking of how this would play out, because we knew that we wanted this bisexual guy character, but we didn't know what we wanted him to play off of. So we kind of just thought of the people that we knew in real life who would like make a good character, and he thought of this girl named Jordan, but she doesn't end up in the actual movie because we replaced it with a Mexican actress instead of a mixed actress.
Gotcha.
Just because I'm Mexican and my sister plays the new actress that is in the actual movie, and it kind of just made everything a lot easier. And so we kind of thought up these characters, and the guy who plays they don't have names in the movie, but his name is Blake in real life. He's the love interest. He just came perfectly because he's like he does a lot of musical theater, and he was just like this perfect, like kind of like the perfect guy you would want to fall in love with. And so we just decided to put him in the movie.
The next question is from someone named Jenny or Janae, I think. Do you look up to any film directors? If so, who are they?
I love Edgar Wright, Martin Scorsese. I love Eugene. I don't know how to say his last name. I don't know. I'm just not going to try to say it, but he made a film called Palace. It's one of my favorite films of all time. He's an indie director. I love Anne Lupo. She does a lot of films that were in South by Southwest. She's a great director. Those are the filmmakers that I look up to.
All right. Right. So next question from Patricia, and just real quick, Edgar Wright's my guy. I haven't seen all of his films, but what I have seen is great. Patricia asks, can the wait, hold on, how do we? Okay, no, I think I'm good. Can the filmmaker speak about the different types of tension in regards to culture, personal relationships, sexuality, that were represented in the film, and the choices they made in regards to visual and audio to bring that emotional experience to the viewers?
So I feel like in my personal life, the people who are gay in my family, who are men, are liked less than the women in my family who are gay, like such as me and my cousin Gina. And I have a uncle named Frankie who is kind of like shunned by my family. And I feel like it's a huge double standard. So I decided to put a male character in my movie instead of a female character, because I feel like I haven't had a struggle with my family with my sexuality. They haven't really questioned me. But I feel like if I were a guy, maybe they would. So that's why I made this film. And that's kind of like the relationship I have with sexuality in my family. They kind of accept it, but they're more lenient toward me than if I were to be a man, I feel like. And with all the music, one of the editors, Alon, she actually did a lot with the music, and I'm not really a music person. I don't really know a lot about it. I kind of don't really understand music cues, how to make a scene feel slower, how to make it feel.
Right.
I don't know anything about that. So that's all her, and I love her, and she's great. And Emily Steinbaumer, I don't know if she wrote any of the music on this film. I don't think she did, but she did a lot of editing and, making sure.
The next question is, I think you kind of basically answered it, but what was the inspiration for the film?
Actually, I don't know if anyone knows who this is. His name is Ryan Beatty. He made a film called Boy in Jeans. He was like a child star, and everyone knew him as straight. And then when he made this album, he basically came out as gay. So like everyone was super surprised, and I feel like that really inspired me to like make something like this.
I only know Ryan Beatty through like Brockhampton.
He's amazing. He's great albums too.
But I should check him out more.
Yeah, he's great.
Did the film have an impact on your own community?
I remember when we screened, a lot of people saw it. I don't know if anyone like took that home with them and had their opinion changed about someone in their family, but I think maybe at least one person. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, that'd be enough. Just to have someone take that. I guess my experience with kind of when we were going through the films and when we saw this for the first time, it was really like near like that end with like that final shot with those colors. We mentioned that we were like, oh my god, wow! It was we found it as such like a clever kind of representation of like both sides of the spectrum, where it's kind of the ending is kind of left a bit ambiguous, right?
Right.
And me and my friend I remember we were just really into that. Mar, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. So when I was watching this film, I was like, I really get it, like not personally, but like I've definitely seen situations where my friend, like you said, like if they were, he's a male, if when he came out, it was really hard and he got really judged because he was a male, and that I really resonated with what you were saying. Like if males were to say they were gay or bi or come out, it would be way harder in certain situations if it was a female, because my other friend, she came out and she didn't really struggle as much as my friend who was a male did. And so when I was watching this, I was like, I really understand. I get like the whole coming out thing is hard, and understanding that, you know, you have to have confidence because of society really just puts you down sometimes if you're different than other people. And I feel like, you know, to me it's like, okay, I want to say something, I want to do something about it. Like to my friend, like she doesn't really care if people because she looks different, she doesn't really care if people call her a male in public or like assume like her gender. And I'll be like, no, like say something, like, you know, that's not your gender, like you don't have to be scared to say something or go with the flow of what other people are saying, because it's fine, you know, like if it's not fine, you can say something. Like even if you don't want to say something, you have help, like people can say something for you, or people can be there by your side even if you are scared or you want to just leave it alone and let it go. So that was my whole experience when I was watching this. I was like, I don't relate to it personally, like myself, but like I definitely can relate in some type of way with people I hang out with a lot that actually have gone through these types of things. So is there anything else you would like to say or like put out there about your film and stuff?
No, I think I'm good. I just like to thank all the crew that helped on this movie, and Ruben, who played the lead, and Blake, and my sister. And thank you guys for letting me talk and showing my film.
Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. So I guess if that's it, I'd like everybody to give a nice at-home round of applause to Angel. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your film.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to our next filmmaker.
Okay.
All right.
Hi.
Oh,
Hi.
oh, sorry, that scared me. I didn't see.
Hello.
All right, so welcome. Please introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from.
I am Alex Casanos. I am from Gainesville, Florida, and my film Perfect You is really about the dangers of social media and the temptation to join the bandwagon on these big toxic programs that are advertised online.
And what was your job?
My job, not, a total filmmaker, really. I edited, I conceptualized, I did everything you see in the film except for the uncredited role of Liam Marvin. Shout out to him. He played a quick little scene where he's at the keyboard and you see his glasses and curly hair. He plays the protagonist, though it's my voice.
Oh, okay, so you're a jack of all trades.
I try. I like it.
Right. All right. So I guess our first question is, where did you gather inspiration for your film?
Well, with every short film that's horror oriented, I begin with the question, what is the scariest thing right now? Of course, it changes over time. Right now, the scariest thing would be the violence you're seeing, you know. But at the time, it was the insecurities a lot of people face when using social media. I see so many people having body image issues. And for a while, I myself faced those problems, but not nearly to the degree of some of my friends. They'd really just sometimes call me in the middle of the night and be absolutely petrified at looking themselves. They'd say, I hate looking at myself. I can't eat. I have to look this way. And like the other films, I believe the first one, it's a problem that so many people, so many teenagers, so many adults face, is sort of trying to compensate how they look, what they see on social media. And Perfect You is really about, I kept seeing advertisements online. Everyone's seen it, you know? When you go watch a movie that's, you know, not on a main platform, so not Netflix, you go on like Putlocker or something, or you're on Facebook, or you're on Twitter, Instagram, these pop-ups show up, these advertisements saying, hey, you can lose this many pounds in this amount of time. It's incredibly appealing. They say it's as though it's a good thing. And sometimes they promise, oh, you're going to feel better than ever. You're going to feel more like yourself than ever before. But it's toxic. And I think people overlook that, thinking, oh, it's just, you know, normal. The internet's full of that stuff. It's fine. I come across that all the time. But imagine if someone said that to you or verbally just forced it upon yourself, which you are. You're just tuning it out. It's quite harmful. And to me, at the time, that was the most horrifying thing.
The next question is from Hayes, I think. What led you to use silhouettes? I don't know.
Silhouettes.
Silhouettes, yes.
Oh, silhouettes.
Hands and head in the film.
Okay. That's funny because that actually came out of another film. That wasn't. A lot of my films begin with just a lot of footage, experimental footage. I go out there and I shoot, and I just gather a little library of this footage. And that was from a previous project where it was all about silhouettes and shadows, and I like superimpositions. All my movies, most of them, they have images stacked on top of each other because I love the idea that you can see things all at once. And when I was making the advertisements for Perfect You, the evil corporation in the film, I was thinking, you know, an advertisement has to be appealing. It has to be attractive. And looking at my footage, I was like, this is very slick stuff. And at the time, I thought it was the best thing ever. Now, when I look back, I could totally improve on that. I could make such a good remake at the moment. But at the spur of the time, I was like, that has what an advertisement needs. It's the pizzazz.
Right. A remake would be kind of sick, but I think the just by itself it's pretty effective. Our next question from Amara: what do you want people to leave with after watching your film?
Well, I think it's open to interpretation. I don't think I want someone to leave with a singular message like, oh, social media is bad, or oh, body image standards are terrible. You know, both are true, and at the same time, I can see an argument that both are wrong. They're both there necessarily. I want people to leave with different messages. I won't say out there because what's the fun in saying, what's the fun of revealing a mystery?
Right.
So really, it's whatever you guys think. I mean, what did you guys think? Can I ask? I'm just curious.
Well, I guess my first time watching it, it was like I took away that there's a lot of like false information around like social media, telling you like this is like the a certain way that your body needs to be, and here's exactly how you need to do it. A lot of like these weird ads on like YouTube and whatnot, like pretty much going through that whole thing. Kind of that, and like the other than like the body image themes, the overall false information that social media gives you about pretty much anything, like let's say like these protests that are happening these
Yeah.
days. There's a lot of these posts from different people, a lot of them, because misinformation can spread like really easily, so it's easy to kind of see something and feel like you're supporting when certain things can really hurt your cause. So I guess those the blend of those themes plus just the really cool imagery.
Yeah,
I
thank
think
you.
was really effective. Really,
I like that. I like that message a lot. If everyone took that, that'd be great. But I've heard so many things, and I like your interpretation because it puts together a lot of them. But yeah. What about you, Mara?
I would say the same as Xavier. But mine was just like a little different, like when I had first watched it, like later on I thought about like what Xavier thought about like social media and stuff. But like at first I thought about like myself while watching it, like, everyone wants me to be someone or wants me to do a particular thing that I may not like or I may not think of myself seeing doing in the future. And so I feel like when I watched Perfect You, it was like I'm in a society that's making me want to be someone I'm not, and I have to try to fit in to be perfect, or I have to try to be that person that everyone wants me to be. So when I was sitting here looking at it, I was like, okay, well, like, it's okay to be yourself. Like, you don't have to be what other people want you to be. Like, you can be different. Being normal is boring. Being the same is boring. So that was just like my whole perspective of when I was watching it. Like, society really wants you to be a certain person and a certain gender and all this other stuff that you do not have to be. It just makes it seem like you're supposed to be a certain way.
Yeah. And this is something I'm just realizing. I made the movie last November, so a lot has happened since then. And every time I make a movie, I forget what really how it happened. Like, it almost, when I look back, you never think of the beginning of a memory or a dream. You just kind of remember like bits and parts. And because it was during Thanksgiving break, every production just goes by real quick, especially when you're just sitting down and just really all you can remember is the satisfaction of watching it for the first time fully completed. So before every interview, I watch my movie like a narcissist because I enough time has passed, I can watch it from a brand new pair of eyes.
Right.
And I realized I never actually Perfect You never described what a perfect you would be. It's preying on your idea of a perfect yourself. And it's interesting, what Mara said, was she was talking about how when she took it, she was really applying it to herself. What she might think as a perfect you, it might be different from Xavier. You guys are brought up differently.
Yeah.
You guys are two different genders. It's the whole premise of the film. The horror comes from realizing there is no singular perfect you. It's all in here. It's advertising for something only you have and you dream of, but like all dreams, well, most of them, they don't come true. It's taking advantage.
Actually, before we go on to the next question on the list, I guess my question to you, kind of a follow-up, is you're talking about how after like rewatching your film several times under like new eyes, is there like a takeaway that you've gained that while you were making the film you haven't thought about like previously, something like a new idea that like kind of subconsciously you put in there?
New idea. So like a lesson I've learned from the movie.
I guess.
I mean, there's two types. There's the technical level, where I'm like, oh, I could have done this better. It could have been a different font. Could have been different music, you know. Because as you grow, I'm constantly watching movies, getting inspiration, and you know, with new movies coming out, like compare I don't know if you guys seen it, The Invisible Man, but yeah, good stuff. Oh, it's good. It's good. So you compare the one from the 30s to the one that just came out last year or this year. Things changed, and if the filmmaker from the old one watched the new one, it's the same way I'm looking back at my old stuff. I'd be like, oh, I could have done this. I could have done that. Another thing, probably, I also love reading movie reviews, and I'm learning that Perfect You, it has a semblance of a story, but it's not your typical story because there isn't really a trajectory. It's a man, he sees an advertisement, registers for a free trial, and possibly dies, goes missing. It's a very simple story, but people really love stories like The Godfather, which I'm not a big fan of. I don't like The Godfather, but I understand why people like it, why people like The Godfather, Dark Knight, Scarface. It's because we're following a character interacting with other characters, and they fulfill their destiny, sort of.
Right.
Perfect Jews is not that. And if I were to make it now, I would have it follow a fleshed out character. Like I'd give him a name. A lot of my characters don't have names because I really haven't thought it through that quickly. And I also make it longer. It's only 2 minutes and 45 seconds. I'm learning that people really love longer movies. Why do you think Avengers Endgame is 3 hours long? People love that. People love when movies are expansive. Godfather, Scarface, both 3 hours long. And even, I don't know if you guys like Joker, but I certainly do. It's 2 hours, right? But when you watch it, it feels a lot longer. People love the immersion, the illusion of a very long movie. And Perfect You has a little bit of that, because in 2 minutes you feel like a lot of things happen. But I would have made it a lot more complicated. Now then, I feel like that only touched the surface of your question. I'm going to add another thing. All right, I'm sorry. Let me add just one more thing. The lesson, if there's like a genuine lesson I learned from it, I don't think so. I think that's really up to the audience. As a filmmaker, I know what went to the movie. I know the strings that move the puppet. So it's very hard for me to put myself completely in someone's shoes and learn a lesson. You know, it's like being a teacher and you're teaching. You're aware of what happened during history, why I'm teaching this, what I want them to get out of it. I am not the student receiving the information and interpreting it in my own life. I'm not applying it to myself the same way Mara is, because I really want to entertain an audience.
All right. Well, I guess we've run out of time for any like further questions. Do you have any like final remarks? Anything? Any like just final thoughts? What you want people to get out of this?
Not really, but not about my movie, but you know, just pertaining to stuff nowadays. Stay safe and fight for these causes that people are trying to push down.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Everybody, give a nice round of applause to Alex. We'll be looking forward to that to the Perfect You remake.
Yes.
All right. So I guess we'll bring up our next filmmakers. Goodbye, Alex.
See ya.
Bye.
All right. He was really leading some of those questions. That got me. Welcome.
Howdy.
Hello. Welcome to the Q&A. Please introduce yourself and explain what your movie is.
So my name's Calvin Mum. I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah. And my film Sewn is a documentary about gun violence from a student's perspective, how it impacts us socially and emotionally, stuff like that. So yeah.
What was your job?
I was the director and producer. So I was in charge of pretty much everything in the production process, because being a producer on a small crew, it means that I'm probably going to just end up doing anything left in between. And I was directing my subjects, writing questions, stuff like that. So yeah.
So our first question comes from Janae. How long did this film take to put together?
So from pre-production to post-production was a year. I was part of a program in my community called Spy Hop, and it was a smaller program called Pitchnik, where we basically, a group of students gets together to make 4 different films, and my film was one of them. So luckily I had a group of kids that I could rely on to make this, and I was in charge of heading my project. But I started with just kind of drafting ideas for my documentary, looking for subjects, kind of doing research on my issue that I had already experienced a lot, but just doing more research so that I could kind of like nail down what I wanted to focus on, what angle I wanted to go at. And then once I had kind of a full picture of like what I wanted to do, I found my subjects, and then from my subjects and recording their footage, it was just editing was kind of just seeing what similarities they all kind of talked about, what the most important things for them were. Some of my questions were really specific for them, like certain instances of gun violence that they had in their schools and kind of going into what that incident was like. But others were just a lot more broad, like what do you think is most important when it comes to this issue, and how do you kind of approach it in your daily life? And seeing them kind of have similar important ideas ended up being an interesting process. And by the end of that year, I think we had a really interesting film.
The next question is by Phil. How much footage from interviews did you have to work with?
So some of my subjects talked a lot longer than others. Some of them were really eloquent, while others were just like normal students that would just kind of like say anything how they usually would. But I think it ended up being about 30 minutes to an hour for each person, which was about 5 subjects. So it was about 5 hours of interview footage, which isn't like as much as a lot of documentaries might tell you. But when I'm cutting it down to just 11 minutes of a documentary, it ended up being way shorter, especially because some of those are just like moments of B-roll and nobody's talking about anything. It's really just like a tight 11 minutes of the most important and impactful bits of dialogue and information that I thought came out of that. And sometimes I thought it was just stuff to kind of like build character and kind of look at these subjects, but other times I was like, these are points that need to be made just straight and simple. So yeah.
Gotcha. The next question is, where did you gather inspiration for your film? And have you ever experienced anything like this?
So my process for this film, I was directly, like, I guess you could say, inspired by incidents that I had experienced throughout my life. That same year that I was coming up with ideas for what I was going to make, I had experienced a couple like small forms of gun violence, like just gun violence scares at our school. But we also had one where we went full lockdown, and we had no idea what was actually going on. Like we weren't told. The subject at the beginning of the documentary who talks about her story, I was in that same class, and that's why I asked her to come and do that, because I thought that was the main catalyst that inspired me to do this film. There's a lot of other documentaries that I had also seen about gun violence, and I think one thing that was important to me was that this was told from the youth's perspective, that we're kind of dealing with this the most right now, and I thought that was really important. So I tried to get like the perspectives that I thought was dealing with it like most directly right now, and ones that I hadn't seen taken as much through the other documentaries I've seen about gun violence. Yeah.
The next question is, do you look up to any film directors?
Yeah, I think even though I've made mostly documentaries, I look up to a lot of feature directors as fiction narrative. I think one of my favorite directors is Sofia Coppola. I like the way that she can take stories and stories about stories about characters that you would normally on paper kind of either kind of despise or just not really feel as much connection with, but build a relationship and a connection that is really powerful and relates to yourself. Another director that I think is really important to me is Akira Kurosawa, who's just he's a lot of, at a lot of the fundamental core processes of film. And just at a filmmaking level, if you can watch his films and learn like why he's doing certain things, you begin seeing that in your own work and how you can incorporate it. And a lot of that is like gone throughout cinema for the last however many years. It's very core to the processes that we know today. Mm-hmm.
Caroline asks, what impact did the film have on your school and community?
So a lot of the people at my school ended up watching it, and it gained a lot more traction with my school than I thought it would have, because a lot of people, I didn't think an 11-minute documentary that was kind of this like quiet and slow would get a lot of traction with my fellow students, but it ended up going through the school and like highlighting an issue that we have been dealing with like kind of a lot more than most schools in our district. One of the schools was dealing with it a lot earlier in that decade, but they hadn't dealt with it in a while. But my school specifically was dealing with it on a almost monthly basis at that point in some form. And I know that like other schools across the nation are dealing with it at a much more frequent rate. So we ended up pushing it really far throughout my school. But more than that, I'm in student government, and I got to get this to the district and kind of help come up with new policies to try and figure out this, because I was kind of mad halfway through production when we were in post production. There was an actual gun pulled off one of our students and escorted off campus, and that was like it was a couple weeks before our screening, and I went to a meeting with the district, and I was like, hey, we were in class and our teachers had no idea what to do. They were just like, hey guys, be quiet. And one of the teachers just thought it was like super life threatening, and they were calling their parents. And when like the students don't know what's going on, they're seeing the teachers don't know anything either, it ends up being this process of like, well, this issue isn't being focused on at all. So with this film, I got to try and help focus on this at a community level, and we're helping still build that today.
I know when I watched this, I was like, wow, like this is a really powerful document, even if it was like 11 minutes long, like to have a really powerful document that's only 11 minutes long. Like just imagine if it was longer, you would probably get way more of details and hear way more people's experiences of what they've gone through. And when I was watching this, I was like, I've never actually gone through something like this, so it must be really scary. Because I know when we do drills in our school, because since the schools are trying to be safe, they've done drills from like elementary to high school, and it's really scary. Especially there was a time where I was in ASL class, and our ASL teacher at our school is actually deaf, so he actually cannot hear. So when we were doing the drill, we had to like cut him off, like say like we have to hide, and it was a little bit harder to actually communicate with the teacher to say, oh, it's a drill, and where do we hide, where do we go, like during a drill. So it was like, okay, well, I can't imagine like if it wasn't a drill, like it would probably be difficult to get everyone settled, make sure no one's screaming, make sure everyone's safe, like what to do if there was a real one. So I just felt like even if it was 11 minutes, it was still a really powerful
powerful document, and it really captivated, like showed all of the experiences and what could really happen during something like that.
Yeah, there was a lot of perspectives and other interesting details in our documentary that I was kind of sad that we had to cut for to make it shorter. And some of it was like it was becoming a little less related, but it was also like these are experiences of gun violence at its core, and why I think we need to focus on this, just not only as like a nation, but just as a world. And one of our subjects was from an immigrant from Africa, and she had a lot more of a direct experience with it when she was young. And it's interesting to compare kind of the culture that they had with guns there and here. In some ways they're different, in some ways they're similar, but at the same time, in both of them, it's like when you have kind of like communities just ignoring this issue as when it's becoming more and more prevalent over time, there's a point where like you're going to run in contact with it, and if we're not like prepared enough to handle it, it's like even if you just do the bare minimum of preparedness, it all goes out the window when it comes on, and like your teacher is just gonna try and figure out anything on the spot, or just do whatever you can, just fight or flight. So yeah.
Right. I guess my experience with like watching this, I felt like it was very important to kind of take in like how like a lot of schools are like have been like taking more and more precaution for these types of incidents, and how it still like becomes like a possible threat that you like, it's important to be prepared for. And even though it is one of our like our longer films that were submitted, I feel like it's very important to have all the information, and I think the way it's portrayed in this kind of interview type style, where these are very personal stories, but it's for me it was filmed in a way where it's kind of, these are still very personal stories, but I can see myself in that situation. I think that's important because I need to keep that in mind. Like, what if I was in this situation? What would I do? So that's I feel like it was really powerful.
Yeah, that was like one way that I was like thinking about structuring it, because I wanted people to see like these are like just kind of like people's individual personal experiences with gun violence. But as you kind of like see that like all these subjects have that, it's like these people have their individual and personal stories with it and how they can talk about it. But at the end of the day, it's like all these people are dealing with the same issue that's kind of been developing at a national level, and that we're still ignoring in a lot of different ways. And one thing I wanted to kind of show is that this isn't just gun violence at schools, but there's also gun violence, in certain communities that like just can't, that are dealing with it in those ways. And there's gun violence in all sorts of ways that our nation and the world are not only really ignoring, but in some ways are still perpetuating. And so I think me just starting with like, it's really depressing that we've gotten to the point where kids have to deal with this on a daily basis, or weekly, monthly. I wanted people to recognize that, like, yes, this can seem at times like something that people just deal with as individuals, but we're getting to a point where it's just like this generation of kids who have all gone through their gun violence incident. So.
When I was watching this, like hearing people's stories, it also kind of made me think of like how at our school, like there may be situations that also may not involve gun violence, and it's really hard in those situations to also address it. Like I know for our school, we had a whole walkout where people told their stories about what could have happened to them at the school, and how they were treated by certain teachers, and how they felt about it. And it was just really powerful to hear everyone's story, even if they were scared to speak out about what was happening to them and how they felt about it, or something that happened to them in the past, and what their reaction to it is now, and how they're dealing with it, and how they're going about it, because it is something that's
Wait, is the audio cutting out for
Yeah, it cut out for me for a second there. Yeah.
Amara? I think it cut out like on part way through what you were saying. Can you repeat yourself?
Oh, I just said, yeah, that was really powerful to hear everyone's experiences.
Yeah. I mean, like we, back when Parkland happened, that we kind of went through a similar thing. And I think leading up to making this documentary, I was very kind of invested in the ways that like we talk about this issue. Because one of the main motivations for me, like I said, was that I feel like it hadn't been explored from a perspective in schools and from students, and that like we're dealing with this, but like a lot of the times when this issue comes up, like with Parkland, they'll say, well, you're just kids, you don't really know what to do with it. But at the same time, the people who are supposed to be handling it are these politicians in public offices that never went through this issue when they were in school. And and we're getting to the point now where people are beginning to understand that a lot more. But like when I'm in Salt Lake City, and so we have a political office that like they're doing their best to try and understand this, but they're never going to be in the direct line of fire like we are, and like we have been for the last while. So I think that was one of my biggest motivations behind this, and going into it, I felt like we explored that really well through all of my great subjects. So, yeah.
All right. So I want everyone to thank Calvin. Thank you, Calvin, for joining us. Everyone give a nice at-home round of applause.
Thank you, guys. It was nice.
Thank you for being here. We'll be
Nice meeting you too.
Yeah,
we'll be bringing on our next filmmakers in a bit. Peace out. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome. I mean,
Thanks,
hi.
Thank you for joining our Q&A. Please introduce yourself and your film.
Hi, I'm Sammy Dowd. I'm so sorry about this lamp in the background. I just realized.
It's fine, you're good.
But I'm from Swampscott, Massachusetts, and my film, to keep it simplistic, is basically a girl's perspective of going through autism on a daily basis. So I wanted to show that.
And what was your job?
I kind of did everything but the filming because if you notice, it starred me. So we didn't really write anything for it because it was all pretty much just like my thoughts and my feelings. And even for like the interview part, that was all, there was no script or anything like that. So I kind of just did everything other than my film, other than like the filming. That was other people, but yeah.
So the first question is, as a teen producer, what's the message you want to send to people who watch your film?
Okay, so I think there's like several messages that you can take away from it. I think the biggest message though would be like, don't like whatever like is going on with like your life, like don't be afraid to like show it, like don't be afraid to like share your story, like know that there are people out there who care, and like don't let anyone who's like, you know, gonna get in the way of you sharing your story, like don't let them dictate like if you get to do that or not. So that's what I would say. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, you can take way more out of it, but that's what I would say in a concrete way.
Who was the intended audience for the film?
So I kind of made it for other people with ASD, specifically girls, and then to educate also pretty much any demographic who wanted to see it. But I would say teenagers and other people with ASD was the main audience.
The next question is the title of the piece, and you sharing how you have become more comfortable understanding and living openly with ASD makes Patricia wonder if making this film was also part of your journey to acceptance.
It definitely was. Before I like made it and like I came up with the idea, I definitely didn't express like what was going on or whatever, like to a lot of people. I definitely kept it more to myself and more to like a very tight group of people. So like making the film was definitely, because it took a few months also, so like definitely through my film I was able to kind of learn to accept and embrace my story more. And so
Gotcha. What impact did this film have on the people closest to you?
I'd say there was a huge impact. The specific impact was I actually showed this to multiple times at my school, to the whole school, and it was huge. People definitely like everybody thanked me for sharing my story and saying, wow, like maybe I can share my story now. Or I had people talk to me about in the future if maybe they would want to make a story about like what they're going through. But I would say like the best thing for me was that people were just like, wow, you made me realize that like there's more to me than just my diagnosis and that there's other stuff.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Next question is, do you look up to any film directors?
Like not. So one fact about me is I'm more into like TV. I do watch films occasionally, but I kind of just watch whatever, maybe whatever maybe someone recommends to me or whatever. So I don't really have any just because I follow more like people who make TV. But I'd say my favorite producer and or director of TV is definitely Shonda Rhimes, who makes shows like Grey's Anatomy. So
A question I personally had was, if you're open to it, can you talk about some of your personal struggles that you have had?
so I'd say some of my personal struggles, to keep it specific with like my film, and or like just like right before it was, so I would say like my late diagnosis, which I talk about in my film, now that impacted, because for a while before ninth grade, which is when I got diagnosed, I was kind of confused, never really fit in, completely. And I knew like, I had stuff like social stuff, but I didn't really have an explanation. And so I think like that was one of the biggest struggles for me, is like some of these confusing, thoughts and feelings that I was having there. Like why do I act this way in a specific situation? So I think definitely to help with that personal struggle, this film kind of helped me be like, and the diagnosis kind of helped me be like, oh, like here's actually like what's going on. Here's an explanation.
Right. I guess my experience while watching this film, it's I guess it struck a chord with me personally, like as someone who lies on the spectrum myself. Who got me some Asperger's, right? Seeing the film and knowing that most of like what I'm seeing is done like by you, it was very powerful. Even though I don't have like that much of like a strong, I haven't like struggled with it as much as like other people may have, but it was still very powerful to see how you kind of you decide to put yourself out there and portrayed how it affected you and how like a lot of people kind of like see them based plainly off of their like disabilities, where there's so much more to a person, like, all right, but like I also I'm an artist or I swim, right? So I thought it was very powerful, like on a personal standpoint, and I think it's something that a lot of I think it's something that'd be very important for a lot of other people to see.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. I really do hope, even though the film is a year old, I do hope that I can still expand my audience to seeing it. And I'm really glad that you shared your personal connection to it, because those are some of the like best outcomes that have come from this film, as people coming to me with their like personal stories. So thank you for that.
Amar, do you have anything to?
I think while I was watching this, it was just really cool to, see someone else's life through their eyes. Cause, when you are not that person physically, you can't really understand sometimes, and you will think like, okay, like if it was me like on a regular basis, like I probably wouldn't have that problem, or I probably would continue on with my day, nothing would be different, but like when you see it through someone else's eyes, like you start to understand, like, not everyone is the same, not everyone can do certain things that you may be able to do every day on the daily basis, and so when I was watching it, I was like, it was really cool for me to hear your experience and what you had to say and what you wanted to have everyone else hear, because not a lot of people can be able to say they've been able to give someone that chance to explain themselves, or to actually give them the chance to say how they feel about what's going on in their life, rather than just judging them off the bat and just making them feel down because they're different than other people. So I really liked the film, and I really thought it was a really great film to showcase that, everyone is different and not everyone can do the same thing all at once, or some people take time to do certain things that may take someone to do in like 2 minutes. So I just really liked the film.
Thank you. Yeah, because one of the main points was to kind of like teach people like embrace your uniqueness, and kind of anyone who's gonna take away from that, obviously they're not truly your friend, or they're not truly supportive of you. So I just wanted to showcase that.
Gotcha. I guess, do you have any takeaways you'd like the to give to the audience? Like any final thoughts?
I think you guys did a really good job asking questions and sharing different thoughts and stuff. And I thought I pretty much covered what I wanted to cover. And I'm really happy that I got to do this. And so thank you both, and all the other people at Do It Your Damn Self that made this possible.
Yes. All right, we want to thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye. All right, so that was our last filmmaker. I want to thank all the filmmakers who submitted. I want to quickly apologize for fumbling the intro. But yeah, let me give a shout out to the 6 DIYDS crew members who couldn't make it to the live event: Nala, Omar, Stanley, Hines, Jenny, and Nate.
We would also like to thank our staff, Philip and Jensen, and the Community Arts Center, and the filmmakers that got in, but unfortunately we're not able to make this live Q&A today and be a part of it with us. And Xavier will talk about our page.
Yes, if you want to support us in the DIYDS crew, please go to our website, DIYDS.org. I was really about to say com. DIYDS.org. And I guess that's it. All I really have to say is
if you want something done,
You gotta do it your damn self. Thank you guys. And round of applause to you guys. The end. I guess this is done.